how do we then make sense of why, at least in the book of Revelation and in other places, it sounds like there is this big thing that's going to
Yeah.
happen? What's going
Yeah.
on there?
Put it in a nutshell is that the Bible, right, has literal meaning. I mean, when John on the Isle of Patmos wrote about all these things to come, I believe he was looking at something literal, but at the same time, there were spiritual things happening. Meaning like it was symbolic of the Romans and the Babylonians and this and that, and it wasn't necessarily all something that was going to happen in 2025 or something like that. So I think all of those things, just like in the prophets, have deeper symbolic meaning. When Jesus talks about there's going to be a time when the sun and the moon are darkened, and there won't be much light in this world, and there will be famines and wars and stuff like that. I think he's talking about number one, we've always had famines and wars, but when he talks like the sun and the moon, I think that's symbolic. The sun is love. That love will be waning in this world at a time, and maybe the moon more is a reflection of love. Our faith won't be as strong, and I do believe that is something that will happen. That there's a spiritual decline there, that we are seeing now. That Jesus said will happen, and actually it happens with every. I don't know if it's every generation, but every church that comes along, there's a decline of some kind or another. And then the hope and the promise that he will come again in one form or another to restart the spiritual movement in the world, or initiate it and continue it happening on a spiritual level, meaning maybe a new revelation or insight that people get and move forward. So it's something symbolic. The sun and the moon can't be darkened. Oh, what about nuclear, this or that, But if you go through and you break it down.
And it's too much of a stretch, too.
Well, everything about it. I mean, from what I have studied or heard, is that the book of Revelation is at the very end of the Bible, because when they were deciding which books were canonical or those books that really should be in something called the book, the Bible, that they weren't sure of the book of Revelation because it was so weird. Because it had so many things, angels pouring vials and dragons and monsters and all crazy stuff in there. But you can't take it literally. I mean, even people today, all these times where people, they say, he's coming in such and such a date, sell everything you have, we'll meet you on the mountain, right? They are interpreting these things that are being said. And I think so. I think I would interpret them too. Emanuel Swedenborg interprets them, but he says from God, he's telling us what these things mean. But they are interpreted spiritually. We are free to go downhill as human beings. And throughout time, like before the Lord was born on earth, or even now, I believe that there is something where we're going downhill, but at the same time, the Lord will raise something else up, like he did being born on earth, but other things can happen. I believe Swedenborg's teachings have a major effect on that. And it starts again.
Right. And I think that there's a key there, that spiritual sense of the book of Revelation. One thing that I like to remember is that Christianity is already based off of the idea that there are these prophecies in the Old Testament that people got wrong and weren't meant literally. And like Elijah didn't come back in a flaming chariot.
Right.
It turned out to be John the Baptist, a different person who is like Elijah but is not Elijah, and completely different message. Or the day of the Lord was not a day of destruction, but the birth of a baby who grew up and was crucified.
Right, even though they thought it was. Or a king. I mean, he's going to end up ruling the world. He says, my kingdom is not of this world. It was a different kind of kingdom, a heavenly kingdom.
So all of Christianity is based off of the assumption that people misunderstood prophecies and took them literally when actually the Lord meant something more. And it's the same thing with the end times. Or the apocalypse.
End times.
What I find fascinating there is that the Lord did actually tell the disciples specifically, do not hear about, people are going to claim all sorts of things. It's like, you're going to hear,
lo, he is there.
Right. You're going to hear this. You're going to hear about wars and rumors of wars and famines and earthquakes. And people are going to say, he's coming. No. And in fact, nobody knows. Not even the angels know when this is happening. Which I think, if Jesus said nobody knows, then I'm pretty sure the random televangelist on TV does not know. And I'm not going to pretend to know.
Yeah.
Because that's not a thing that you can know in that sense. Yeah. Now, but the other part that was interesting that I would love to focus on is that spiritual meaning of what is the end times. Because you said it, and I agree with you, that it can happen for many churches or organizations or the ways that people worship the Lord, but it can also happen for individuals. Like there is a final judgment for each of us, but it's not balls of fire coming out of space. It's something more
No,
spiritual.
thank goodness, right.
Right. Or maybe that would actually be easier.
Well, our own end of times, I think, is with our own passing into the other world. I mean, I will say right away, the judgment is really something of our own. In other words, Jesus said, "I don't judge you. It's my word is what judges you," or something like that. And I don't know if I got the words exactly right, but what he was saying is like, sure, it's set up. I mean, the whole world is set up so that you can go to heaven and you're free to do that, but it's got to be set up so that you don't. So if you want to make a hell out of your lives and end up in your own hell in the other world when you die, you can do that too, okay?
Right.
But the judgment that's taking place is not God going, you're going to, you didn't make it, you're going down there, or, oh, thank you, you're going to go up here, you did pretty well, not perfect, but I'll let you in. It doesn't work that way. There isn't no grand judgment. And you can see that even like Jesus on the cross at the very end when the thief says, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He didn't say, "All right, that'll be about 2,500 years from now, but hey, listen, I'll make a note." It was like he turned to him and said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Like it's happening today, now, when we all go into this other world.